The silverware felt oddly heavy in my hands, each piece trembling as if it could betray my simmering irritation. Across the table, my sister's words slithered into the conversation like poison. "It's really unfortunate when people never seem to find their stride," Olivia said, her gaze casually flicking toward me, laden with that smug, rehearsed pity she always perfected. "Catherine, maybe you should check with Mr. Townsend about a mailroom opening. At least that's a real job." Mr. Townsend, Olivia's boss and tonight's guest, let out a small chuckle, his crystal wine glass tipping slightly as he laughed. The sound, rich and indulgent, seemed to bounce around the room and settle in my chest like molten lead. I could feel my pulse hammering against my temples as I caught my parents exchanging that familiar look. The one that had haunted me for 17 years, the silent reprimand for daring to step off the path they had mapped out for me. My phone buzzed quietly in my pocket, 4 times already. The board was pressing, the emails urgent about tomorrow's acquisition. The deal that could cement Townsend's future, the one requiring only my signature to execute. I am Catherine, 32 years old. And this is the tale of how I stopped concealing my achievements from the family that measured me by my supposed inadequacies. Tonight wasn't meant for revelations. For half a decade, I had carefully maintained the facade of modesty. A teaching job at a small college, a humble apartment, a second-hand car. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, I had been building Summit Enterprises into a quietly dominant global company. Through a subsidiary, we had absorbed Townsend's firm last quarter, finalizing the full merger barely a year ago. My life was an open secret of obscured wealth and influence, but I had hidden it with meticulous care. "The garage is all ready for you, Kathy," my mother announced suddenly, snapping me from my thoughts. She spoke as if the cold concrete space was a generous gesture, ignoring that her comment was steeped in judgment. "We put a heater in there since Amanda needs the guest room. She's pregnant after all." The family seemed to hang on her every word, their silence amplifying the implied ridicule. This was their ritual, watching me minimized, my worth measured against their expectations. I kept my tone even. "The garage will work," I said, already imagining the penthouse overlooking Central Park, the Maui villa, the private island I had discreetly purchased last summer, all meticulously obscured through layers of shell companies. Olivia's expression brightened, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. She adored when I mentioned my teaching job, proof in her mind that I hadn't truly achieved anything. Dinner progressed with the usual theatrics, the passing of cranberry sauce, the casual digs veiled as concern. "It's not like you're not used to humble arrangements," Mom remarked, brushing over my comment as if she hadn't heard it at all. Olivia's smile widened further, her diamond bracelet catching the light as she reached for her wine glass. "At least you remember your place," she said with thinly veiled glee. After the meal, Olivia guided me to the garage. The small heater sputtered against the cold concrete, ineffective but present. A worn military cot was positioned awkwardly among boxes of decorations, and my father's golf equipment. A thin, threadbare blanket was folded neatly at the foot, a gesture meant to resemble thoughtfulness, but only emphasizing discomfort. "Dinner tomorrow is at 7, Olivia said, her voice carrying a hint of instruction as she handed me a note. "Try not to track dirt into the house." Once the door clicked shut, I pulled my phone from my pocket. 3 urgent emails from the board demanded immediate attention. The very meeting Olivia's boss would be presenting at tomorrow? Its outcome hinged entirely on my decisions. I typed responses with precision, each keystroke a quiet assertion of power, a reminder that Mr. Townsend, the polished and ambitious man who believed himself indispensable, had spent the last month trying, unsuccessfully, to secure a meeting with the CEO of Summit Enterprises, now his firm's silent owner. A text from my assistant appeared. Mr. Townsend was asking, yet again, if he could meet me. I smiled faintly, savoring the irony. None of them had the faintest clue who I had become, and tonight, in the cold garage, the tables were quietly beginning to turn. The chill of the garage bit through my coat as I slipped into a fresh outfit, carefully concealing my designer blouse beneath a simple sweater. The cold was nothing new. I'd faced far worse when I was just starting out, carving my empire from the ground up while my sister climbed her corporate ladder, flaunting each promotion like trophies. I, on the other hand, had quietly acquired businesses, reshaped industries, and built something far grander than anything my family imagined. By 7 p.m. sharp the next evening, I entered the dining room and claimed my usual spot at the far end of the table, as distant as possible from the center of attention. Olivia, glowing with self-importance, sat near the head beside Mr. Townsend, laughing at his stories and soaking in the admiration she so eagerly craved. "Catherine," my father called, interrupting the conversation. Olivia had just been recounting her latest triumph, her promotion to Junior Vice President of Operations. I nodded politely as a plate of turkey was placed before me. "Congratulations, Liv. Summit Enterprises must be thrilled with your work," I said evenly. Mr. Townsend's smile was broad and approving. "Indeed, she's an exceptional talent. The merger with Summit last year has opened doors for dedicated executives like Olivia," he praised. Mom exhaled happily. "We were so concerned when Summit acquired the company, but it's worked out beautifully. Though I admit their CEO is quite enigmatic. No one really knows much about her." Olivia leaned forward eagerly, ready to display her supposed insider knowledge. "Apparently, she's incredibly private, maybe living in London or perhaps Tokyo. Nobody at our level has ever seen her in person," she said. I sipped my wine discreetly, fighting back a smile. If they only knew that the very CEO they were gossiping about was right there at the end of the table, relegated to a corner, temporarily housed in our garage. "Remarkable track record, isn't it?" Mr. Townsend remarked. "She's transformed over a dozen major companies in just 5 years and built Summit from the ground up." Olivia waved it off. "Well, if she's hiding from everyone, she can't be that brilliant. Probably just got lucky." Her dismissal made me chuckle silently under my breath. At that moment, Mr. Townsend's phone buzzed. His expression shifted almost immediately, a flicker of concern crossing his face. "Excuse me, I need to take this," he said, stepping into the hallway. His voice, however, carried clearly to the room. "Yes, I have the reports ready for tomorrow's board meeting. No, I haven't been able to reach Mrs. CEO yet. Yes, I understand she's supposedly in London." Returning to the table, he looked unsettled, his earlier poise diminished. Olivia, never one to miss a chance to shine, launched into another story about her professional accomplishments. "I just reorganized the entire operations department," she said, slicing her turkey with meticulous care. "Saved the company millions." I discreetly checked my phone under the table, pulling up the detailed report from that very project. The numbers were damning. Olivia's so-called savings had actually cost the company nearly $3 million, due to inefficiencies she had introduced. I had been monitoring the results for weeks, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal the truth. Daily updates on major departmental changes, especially those spearheaded by executives like Olivia, were standard in my role as CEO. Mom, attempting to maintain peace, offered, "More wine, Catherine?" Her tone suggested she hoped to quiet me during Olivia's triumph. "Perhaps water is better, considering your budget," Olivia sneered. A subtle reminder of the distance between our worlds. Mr. Townsend's phone buzzed again. His face drained of color this time. "I need to take another urgent call," he muttered, hurrying away. I could hear his desperation as he pleaded into the phone. "Please, just 5 minutes with Mrs. CEO before tomorrow's board meeting." A series of increasingly urgent messages had been dispatched from my assistant, deliberately engineered to create tension, small theatrical revenge for the years of Olivia's arrogance and condescension. Just then, Uncle James interjected, his voice casual but carrying weight. "Did everyone hear about Summit's latest acquisition? Richardson Global, $12 billion. Olivia straightened instantly. Her eyes sparkled with excitement. "That's a huge competitor," Aunt Margaret added. "They didn't see it coming. This CEO, she's merciless, completely strategic." I sat back, savoring the irony. While my family remained blissfully unaware of who I truly was, the empire I had built quietly continued to expand, leaving behind the very people who had once dismissed me. The night unfolded with chatter, laughter, and boasting, all oblivious to the truth simmering silently at the far end of the table. I found myself reflecting on the Richardson acquisition, recalling the endless nights spent analyzing every clause, every contingency. Some would call it cutthroat. I preferred to think of it as methodical, precise, and unwavering. Determined. That was closer to the truth. Mr. Townsend appeared again, looking pale, almost on the verge of collapse. There's an emergency pre-board meeting tomorrow morning, he stammered. All department heads are required at 7 a.m. Olivia's fork clanged against her plate, her eyes widening in disbelief. What? But tomorrow's Christmas. She doesn't care, Mr. Townsend said flatly. She wants to review the recent operational adjustments. Olivia, make sure your restructuring reports are ready. That was my moment. I cleared my throat gently. Mr. Townsend turned, startled by the voice from across the table. Yes. The meeting is actually scheduled for 8 a.m., not 7, and Olivia's reports are unnecessary. I've already gone through them. The room froze. Olivia's nervous laughter fell flat. What are you saying? You don't even work here. I rose, smoothing the modest sweater I wore. Actually, I do. In fact, I am Summit Enterprises. My gaze landed on Mr. Townsend. The reports you've been scrambling to deliver? I already reviewed them last week. We should go over the Q4 projections. They're off by nearly 30 million. His jaw fell open. You're Catherine Wilson, CEO of Summit. I smiled, savoring the sudden color drain from Olivia's face. Most people just call me Mrs. CEO. I said, letting it hang in the air. My mother's wine glass slipped from her hand, spilling deep red across the white tablecloth. Nobody moved to salvage it. This has to be a joke, Olivia whispered. I projected my company ID on the wall with a flick of my phone. Photo, title, everything in crisp detail. No joke. While she had been climbing her corporate ladder, I had been constructing an empire in silence. But you're a teacher, my mother stammered. 1 class per semester at the community college. I corrected her. I do it because education matters. The rest of my time is devoted to running one of the world's largest private equity firms. Olivia pushed back from the table, chair scraping the floor. You can't. You live in that tiny apartment. You drive a Honda. I shrugged lightly. I own the building where that apartment sits. And as for the Honda, it's eco-friendly, unlike your company-charged Mercedes. Mr. Townsend sank into his chair, no doubt recalling every condescending remark he had ever made about the elusive CEO. The garage, he muttered, voice low. We made you sleep in the garage. Yes, I said softly, letting it land. You judged me by appearances and never looked further. I turned to Olivia. Remember last month when you refused Sarah from accounting time off for her child's surgery? She nodded, silent. I personally approved her leave and arranged for the best specialist in the country. That's what leadership looks like. Taking care of your people. My father finally spoke. Why didn't you tell us? Would it have made a difference? I met his gaze steadily. Would you have treated me differently if my success didn't meet your standards? This family equates worth with labels and money. I wanted to create something of real substance. I faced Mr. Townsend again. Tomorrow's board meeting will happen as planned. We'll review the operational changes that cost 3 million, among other matters. Olivia, I suggest you prepare thoroughly. You're going to fire me, Olivia whispered. No, I said, gathering my things. I'm going to do what I should have years ago. Hold you accountable. True success isn't about titles or corner offices. It's about integrity, innovation, and results. I paused at the door. One more thing. I won't be sleeping in the garage tonight. I have a suite at the Four Seasons, which, by the way, I own. Merry Christmas. Driving away in my environmentally conscious Honda, my phone buzzed relentlessly with messages. Apologies, excuses, attempts to rewrite the past. I ignored them all. The next morning, I sat at the head of the boardroom table in Summit headquarters, watching Olivia and Mr. Townsend file in alongside the other executives. Gone was her smugness, replaced with what looked unmistakably like respect. Before we begin, I said, I want to discuss company culture. How we treat people, regardless of their role or title. True leadership isn't just about profits, it's about character. Olivia didn't meet my eyes, but I noticed her taking notes, genuinely, perhaps for the first time in her life. Sometimes, revenge isn't about retribution. It's about proving that their opinions never defined you. While they spent years judging me, I was quietly building an empire. And next Christmas? I'll host it at my place. 15,000 square feet of it. Let them sleep in the garage.